Welcome back to Time. What are we talking about today, Ty?
Apparently your new speech impediment. Yeah, Galaxy Quest, man.
I hear about that guy in the audition. Basically, he auditioned for it in that way, and they they loved it so much. But the balls on that guy, because he went in and auditioned regularly, and they were like, "Okay, great, that was a good audition, thank you." And then they were like, they could tell he was thinking about something, and they were like, "Is there something else you want to do?" He goes, "Well, I've been thinking about doing it this way." Where he's like, "Welcome," and did it how he does it, and they were like, "That's fucking genius," and he got the job, and then he. Basically, the direction was do what he's doing, like, and then he kind of did the alien boot camp, and like all the walking like the shit they do there. And what he said he says, all I do is I imitate like a Mormon or like a Jehovah's Witness that comes to your door and kind of that creepy. I'm sorry, I apologize if there's any Mormon. This is what he said. This isn't what I said. I'm just repeating what he said. I know Ty takes great offense to these kind of things. And then he used to do this acting exercises where you had to like talk from the diaphragm. So he'd be like, so he started doing that. And it fucking kills me. I laugh so hard no matter how many times I see this movie. So funny.
Yeah, I think there is an argument that it is the greatest sci-fi comedy of all time, which is strange to say because it was not a hit when it came out. It was kind of disappointing box office wise. And, it took a while to find an audience, which is weird because you watch it now and you're like, this is clearly the best sci-fi comedy ever. Why was this such a miss with the audience when it came out?
I think objectively, everything about this movie is extremely well done. For my personal taste, there are two things about this that I wish were done different. Well, number one, like if you go back, Harold Ramis was originally supposed to direct this.
Yeah.
And Bill Murray was one of the guys they were talking about for playing the captain. That's a movie I want to see. And I think the original, back when Harold Ramis was kind of in charge of it, it was the comedy was a bit more adult. It was a bit darker. So the two things that doesn't now, and it pains me to say this because I like Tim Allen. And I think, like, I remember I used to watch his stand up and I think he's funny. I enjoyed his show. But he does a good job in this. But I wanted somebody else. Like I wanted Bill Murray. Like Kevin Kline, they really wanted. Hardcore really wanted.
No, I think Kevin Kline would be better than Bill Murray though. And the reason that I don't think Bill Murray would have been a great choice for this is Kevin Kline can play it straight. And that's what Tim Allen is doing in this movie. He's playing the straight man. He's almost never the guy who makes the joke.
Yes,
right?
but I want... So, yes, and I think he does... So let me just get this out there. I think he does a good job. I obviously, I'm a fan of this movie. I enjoy this movie. But when I went back and rewatched it, and I was like, the two things that... that's part of what this podcast is like looking at what you could do better. I would rather see a hero, a sci-fi hero, that the comedy is coming from his point of view, which Tim Allen is doing... But more than seeing a comedian and the sci-fi hero is the stretch. And I think Tim Allen does the right thing. There's just something about the gravity. There's something about, I think that there's a bit of sadness, that is funny, that could make this a dark comedy. That, when he was at the, when he was in the bathroom and they were talking about how they're all like, nobodies and all that, and he's hearing that's a true story. And that was like, and Shatner experienced that. It was in 86 and he was at a con and he was taking a pee and they were like, that Shatner's a washed up old piece, and he's like, listen to this. And there's something really sad about that, really dark about that. And maybe it's because Tim the Toolman Taylor or whatever, but there wasn't that weight, that gravity, that sadness, because that sadness is then very funny. But it's a dark kind of funny.
I'm going to have to disagree with you here. I think now, and I'm not the world's biggest Tim Allen fan. I'm not. I never watched Tool Time. I think I've seen like 2 episodes of it. I never liked his comedy of like, that sort of like, let's super up, that kind of comedy that never did anything for me. And I really haven't seen him in other the only other thing I really love him in is Toy Story. And for me, what he's doing works because he plays like a guy who knows his best days are behind him and cannot let go. Can't let go. He loves walking out on that stage and being the captain again, right? Like when the audience is clapping for him, he's just beaming and he's so excited. I think you need both. I think you need the sadness that he knows his best days are behind him. He knows he'll never be that guy again. And the excitement when he gets those brief flashes of getting to be the guy, because that's the motivation for everything he does after that. But he is trying so hard to recapture those glory days. He's willing to do this crazy thing.
But the thing is the excitement makes him forget the sadness. And what was missing is that sadness, that depression. And one of the funniest scenes is when, what are the aliens called? What planet are they from?
What does he say? They're Dalmatians or what does he call them? Yeah, I forget.
He calls them Dalmatian or he goes, I don't know, I was hungover. Or termites.
Termites or Dalmatians. Aren't they like Thermians or something like that?
Yeah, Thermians. Yeah, here's the thing. First of all, I just want to say, like, I'm looking at this and being like, oh, what did I want more for this? Because I love this movie. I think it's a good movie. But it could have been, in my personal taste, it could have been, and when they go find him and he's hungover, I think what they did is they took the tone. Well, I know by reading about the movie after the fact is that DreamWorks, when they started seeing dailies and playback and everything, because they were doing Gladiator and they were really focused on Gladiator. And then when they turned and started really paying attention to Galaxy Quest, it threw them for a loop. And because there was cussing and the comedy was a little bit darker than what they anticipated, they wanted to be like a slapstick, kind of making fun of sci-fi thing.
Right.
And when it was coming out in theaters, it was like going to compete with Stuart Little, and they wanted like let's lean into a family type comedy here. And to me, it loses a little bit when it leaned into that. And you can go back and see certain scenes that they cut out where it's like cussing, and then there's a fucking hilarious scene when Alan Rickman asked where the toilet was. Do you ever see this as a deleted scene?
Yeah, I've seen all the deleted scenes. Yeah.
And then it's got horns and like rams that like it's going to ram up your ass, like a torture chamber. And he saw that. He was like, looking. It is so funny, but they took a lot of that stuff out.
Yeah.
Do you not think that the bad guys were a bit cartoony?
No, I think they were perfect. I think they were like really, really, really well done original Star Trek guys. And that's what you needed. You needed guys that felt like they could have walked off the original Star Trek, but done with modern makeup and modern effects. And I think that's what we got.
And to be fair, the director said, he goes, I was just making a very good Star Trek episode.
Yes. And I think tonally, what you need is, I think that, and this is the magic I think that they accidentally found, is you take an episode of Star Trek, you populate it with a crew that starts out not thinking it's real and comes to realize it's real. And that's what they pulled off. That's what they managed to get. And I think it's magic, and it's magic. It's lightning in a bottle. Like, I think if you tried to remake that movie 10 more times, you would fail 10 times. It was this weird chemistry was happening there.
Yeah, and one of the things that I thought was really beautiful about it is how it portrayed the fans. And like Justin Long was the heart of the movie.
Yes.
And I remember, and it needed that heart, So like the funniest, probably the hardest I ever laughed is when they come to get Tim Allen and he's hungover and he's in his house.
Yes.
And he's bending over in his underwear and he's like,
looking for his shoe.
And they're like, and they look on the roof and they're just trying to help him, and they do that. But in that moment of like of them coming to find him and him being hungover and like the night before and everything, and you're seeing that because now you know why when he invites them along to go on the trip with them, he's like, what the fuck? What else are we gonna do? What else have we got going on?
Yeah. Well, and you need his desperation.
Yes, and their desperation and sadness in that I empathize when I watch that, and now I'm along with the journey because I really care for them, especially when they're like, when he's like, what else do we have? And there's like moment of real gravity to that thing. But to go back to Justin Long, so this came out in '99, and I don't know, you weren't in Hollywood at this time, but like when I was coming up, what you and I are doing on this podcast is what I did my whole life with all my friends. Like we would just, really just, this was what we were into, and we would talk about it. And I remember when I first got to Hollywood, this was not cool. This was like hanging out with some of the actors and stuff to hang out with. It was almost not cool to be enthusiastic about something, right? And it was like, it wasn't cool to love something unless it was like Citizen Kane or The Godfather or any of that. And I remember like even being in theater, and when I first got to LA, and they were like, there was like asking what these young actors, what are your goals are, and raise your hand. And she was like, and she's like, if you wanted to do naming, these great plays and doing these great performances and eventually doing King Lear and, all this, and everybody was raising their hands. And then it like the movie talk came up, and and you raise your hand, and everybody's like you smell bad, like, oh my God, you want to fucking and it's like, and so, but I remember those days.
You're like, I want to be John McClane, and everybody's like,
yeah, it's like, I want to be fucking John McClane, and I want to be Kurt Russell, So there was, so the fandom at that time, it wasn't. Then there was like a tonal, like when Marvel started making movies or something, there was a shift where then it became cool and it became the cultural thing, and there was a shift, and so all those motherfuckers that were like didn't think it was cool, now they're all like. It's like, they're all like, fandom, and we're big fans, and we're doing all this stuff. And so there was something pure about going back and seeing the 99 where these guys are truly fans and they love it, where now it gets kind of muddled in, social media and attention and, certain things, but where it just felt pure back in the day.
Yeah. The minute I'm talking to somebody and I can tell they're trying to put on the affect of ironic detachment, I just mentally, I'm like, oh, I'm done with you. Like,
I can't be friends with you.
Oh, I get it. You're too cool to like things. I get it. How amazingly cool you are because you don't like anything. Yeah, fuck off. Yeah, and those are invariably very boring people to talk to.
Yeah,
because they're not. Their whole thing is they're not allowed to like things, right? And they're so careful that they don't accidentally like something that isn't cool. And meanwhile, like guys, like this is why you and I get along, because we're like, sci-fi, it's great, spaceships, man, fuck yeah, space wizards, sign me up,
dude. We do a fucking podcast for 3 hours on Outland with Sean Connery. I've given up. There's nothing cool about anything that we do, and I'm okay with that.
For the most part. You and I could buy and sell their cheap asses. So
you damn right.
Your coolness isn't getting you anywhere, buddy. And Brad Pitt living in his car, he could buy all of us.
Yeah, he's not living in his car anymore.
Not living in his car anymore. But I agree. So the thing with the Justin Long character, they're taking sort of the public perception of the sci-fi fan, nerdy, doesn't have a girlfriend, lives with his parents, obsessed with things that aren't real, and presents those guys to us as that caricature. And then the movie is smart enough to give them a hero moment, right? Like it's okay that they care about these things. Actually, the fact that they care about these things leads to them being heroic at the end of the movie and actually saving the day. And the Tim Allen character starts out with such contempt for those guys, and by the end of the movie is treating them with respect and seeing them as a valuable part of his life. And I think that's part of the charm of the movie, is that if you're a nerd watching this movie, you get to see the caricature that you're portrayed as and the honest version of yourself both in the same movie, which is nice.
And they're also the people that you can count on. The people that will be there for you when the things are down. Like they're the ones that come through. So, the way that he treated them, and the way, but they ended up coming through for him at the end.
And the piece that you forget, and the piece that the Tim Allen character forgot, when I rewatch the movie, I see it now. No matter how much so the guy, I go to signings and I sign books for fans and stuff. And no matter how incredibly off-puttingly nerdy the dude is that's coming up to get his book signed, and the weird questions he asks and all of that stuff, that guy pays your rent. That guy has bought your books. He watches your TV show. Everything you have is because of him and people like him. And he deserves some fucking respect, right? From you, the creator, whose job is only exists because of people who are your fans. And so when you see Tim Allen at the beginning, he's treating these fans with contempt. And then he's going home to his fucking house in the Hollywood Hills. And like he's got this beautiful glass house on the Hollywood Hills. Who paid for that house? Justin Long paid for the house, motherfucker. Have a little respect, right? And so it is one thing, like when I first watched the movie, I just loved it because I thought it was funny. It was awesome. Now watching it in a position where I have been on the other side of it, where I am writing the books that those guys buy and I'm making the TV shows that those guys watch, and seeing it from the other side and sitting in my nice house in Washington on the mountain and going, those guys pay for everything I have. And God damn it, if one of those guys walks up to me and asks for a signature, he's getting some of my time. We're going to have a conversation. I'm going to treat him with respect. I'm going to find out why he likes the things he likes and let him express himself. And 9 times out of 10, your first reaction to the person is wrong. They're more interesting. They're more engaged. They have more to say than sort of the off the cuff, oh, he's just a nerd. He won't, he's not cool or whatever. And I like that the movie takes us through that journey with Tim Allen, starting out with the contempt and getting to the places like, no, these are real people and they have real perspective and they're capable of heroism when they get the opportunity and they deserve your respect.
And I will say that with The Expanse, everybody, knock on wood, everybody that I've met out in town, everybody that I spoke with or talked with, I've had great conversations.
Yeah.
With. Like just really intelligent, smart, interesting people. And I've been a part of other fandom things, and I've done those things. But The Expanse, I look at it and I'm like, oh, we like the same things. Yeah. We're into the same things. We love the same books. Anything that involves like doing The Expanse or something like that, I really enjoy it because I enjoy the people around it. Yeah. And I think that once you realize like, oh, we're all fans, we just have different expressions of our fandoms. Yep. And the fact that, you think it like what Belle does for us, like that's her expressions, that's her talent. And that's how, and that's her art storytelling, the video art and those kind of things. And so I find, and that's what I loved about this movie is that it treated the fandom. And this was back when now this is common. Like it's not, fans don't have the same stereotypes as they did in 99.
In 99, if you were obsessed with classic Star Trek, a lot of people are going to treat you like you're a weirdo. Yeah.
Did you ever go to any of those classic Star Trek conventions? What was the first convention you went to ever?
The first sci-fi convention I ever went to was a little local convention called Bubonicon, which is a sci-fi. It's the regional sci-fi convention in New Mexico. And the reason I went is my friend Emily is a writer and lives in New Mexico. And Janae and I were going to visit her. And she said, oh, while you're here, this little sci-fi convention, Bubonicon's going on. You should come hang out. And it was the first time I met George, who I wound up later working for, George Martin. It was the first time I met Daniel. A bunch of people that I have stayed friends with since then. I met at that first little convention. It was the first one I ever went to.
Was it a writer's? Was it like books and comic books?
No, it was sci-fi. It was any sci-fi. It was TV shows, movies, books, whatever. Mm-hmm. Mostly the pros that were there were writers, were TV writers, or not TV, excuse me, novelists. But so like George was there. He was the big name that goes to that convention. But that was before his TV show. So, he was most famous as a novelist.
So, we started this podcast and I was trying to find some things that, personally what I think, but, David Mamet said that the 4 perfect movies are The Godfather, A Place in the Sun, Dodsworth, and Galaxy Quest.
Nice.
And if
I knew I liked him.
And if you're somebody that like studies script writing and story structure and how things are set up and paid off and character expression and everything, this movie is phenomenal. And it's so truthful that somebody like Ty is talking that understands these Comic-Cons and been on both sides of the table and done all the different things at Comic-Con. You're looking at this and you're like, Jesus Christ, like they really get it right. And there's a great scene when Justin Long's like, listen, I know this isn't.
I'm not an idiot. I know it's
I'm not
real.
an idiot. I know it's not real. And he goes, it is. It's all real. And he goes, I fucking knew it. I fucking knew it was real. And that's the truth. That's the truth. I'm always like as a kid, I'm like, yeah, I know fucking Star Wars isn't real. I didn't, I fucking, but at night I'd be like, God, please be real. Please be,
yeah. But if a ship landed in your yard and said, come with us and help fight the rebellion,
I would know exactly what to fucking do. Yeah.
You'd be running in.
I'd always say in those movies where the fantastic thing would happen, like in the last Starfighter, when the guy shows up and he's like, you're the best on the video game, so now we're going to take you up. And there, there's always that moment of like refusing the call, not knowing what the fuck's going on. I'm skipping that step. I'm like, I've seen it. I got it. Let's go. Yeah. Like, fucking, I'm here. Yeah.
He comes out to talk to you. You're already in the car.
Yeah,
like, come on, motherfucker, let's go.
I'm like, let's go. They already have me.
And the smart thing that they do is they create silly situations, and it's you can laugh at the situations, you can laugh at some silly moments, but they never make fun of the core concept, which is that people genuinely fall in love with these kinds of sci-fi worlds. They genuinely fall in love with them, and they never make fun of that. And you can't make fun of that if the movie's going to work. And even when Tim Allen's being a dick to the fans, the other cast, the Sigourney Weaver character, she's like, I've never seen him treat a fan that way. You're not supposed to do that. She genuinely seems to care that the fans are treated well and treated with respect and stuff. So they walk it, like I said, it's magic in a bottle. Or lightning in a bottle. They somehow managed to walk that tiptoe line of seeing the silliness in fandom, because there's a lot of silliness in fandom.
Yeah.
But not making fun of fandom for being silly. Still loving them. Because this movie is making fun of Star Trek and it's making fun of fandom, and it loves both. It loves Star Trek. It loves fandom.
Yeah.
And that love comes through in every scene.
You could not make this movie if you were mean.
Yeah.
If you had a
version of this movie doesn't work.
It doesn't work, and it's not worth watching. And Sam Rockwell's character is so pitch perfect. I remember
he's my favorite character in the movie.
He kills me, and look, we know those guys. You described somebody one time in an email, and you said this person is 10% writer, 90% con man, right?
Yeah.
And we know those people that are 10% actors, 90% self-promoters.
Yep.
And like you crack that door, they'll kick that motherfucker open, and they will be involved in the whole thing. And you realize it's like you're a marketer, man. That's your talent. Like go fucking do it. And they can take an episode off Galaxy Quest and then turn it into a career at Comic-Con, because they're good at that. They have talent at that. And this movie treated him with respect. They didn't look down on him. They didn't talk about him, everything. He was just tagging along for the ride.
They do. He is a caricature at the beginning. He is a source of fun at the beginning. But what the movie does, and over it does this, is it gives him a moment of true heroism.
That's the point I'm making.
Yeah.
That's the point I'm making, is like it's not cynical towards him. It allows him to get a win. Yeah. And then, and some of the, probably I think the second time the hardest I laugh in this movie is when they don't believe the story, and then they get beamed up to the ship, and then they go, no, and they're just sitting there,
and he just screams.
No, hold on. No, they're quiet. They're just fucking out of it. And then those aliens, and they come in and they're in their octopus form. And they come and
they're scanning them with devices and stuff.
And the whole time they don't say a word. And he's looking, and they're scanning and they're doing this and then they slither out the door, and then he's like, the time is like so perfect.
He's great in this movie. They're all great. So I mean, we should talk about all of them, but Sam Rockwell specifically, I don't know that I had ever really paid much attention to Sam Rockwell before. I mean, he's been around forever. He's done a ton of stuff, and I'd seen him in other things, but I hadn't really paid a lot of attention to him. But after this movie, I was like, that guy's a fucking genius. And anytime he shows up on screen, I'm going to be watching to see what he does, because the way he handles the character of Guy in this movie is note perfect. It is note perfect. That when they land on the planet and he realizes that he's the red shirt, and he's like, maybe I'm the guy who's going to get killed, so that everybody realizes and he's like, I don't even have a last name. Like, you do have a last name. Do I? Because nobody knows what his last name is. And then the moment that follows that, when the aliens show up, the scary aliens show up, and Sigourney Weaver says, quick, let's get out of here before one of those things kills Guy. They all know he's a red shirt. They all know he's the one who's going to get killed. I mean, it's so pitch perfect.
You know, you talk about having a small part and making a lot out of it, you know, is Tony Shalhoub.
Oh, my God.
You know, they talk about that part.
Tony is so funny.
They talk about that part in the script, and they're like, there was hardly nothing there. And if you go back and look, there's hardly nothing there. They had a long conversation about Kung Fu and David Carradine. And the rumor is David Carradine used to smoke weed constantly and everything on set. And he was, you know, always stoned. And that's like that stoic kind of feel of Kung Fu. That's where it came from. And so they came up with the idea of him being just stoned the whole time. Now, again, they cut, when they wanted a family movie, they cut a lot of that stuff out. Right. So you're like, the way he acts, you're kind of like, where is it coming from? But I think the randomness of it makes it so much more fun. He's like, he kills me in this movie. And again, like, going back, when we talk about films and we just rave because we're talking about our favorite films, I wanted to say, on a personal note, here are some things that I would have liked to have seen or tried differently. But there's no denying that this movie is at the highest level, and it works on so many different levels, and it's hilarious.
It is so funny. And the magic of this movie, part of the magic of this movie, is everybody gets a heroic moment. Every single character gets a hero moment. Even the small characters, even the Guy, he's comic relief, but he still gets a hero moment, right? And I think that's part of the magic of it is that the movie there are no throwaway characters in the movie, right? All of them have a moment that they shine, that they get to do something awesome. But all of them also every single one of the characters gets at least one moment that made me laugh out loud. Like, there's not like, oh, he's the funniest guy, and the rest of them were just kind of like following him around. They're all incredibly funny. Like, all of them made me laugh. The Thermians made me laugh multiple times. Guy, everything Guy says is funny. Like, every time he opens his, but Tony Shalhoub, he, like you said, he's not like a big part, but he has 3 of the funniest moments in the entire movie. When he's talking about the cracked beryllium sphere, and they're watching him on the screen, and he's just kind of, the beryllium sphere is cracked. Engines can't go. We're going to need a new one. And there's like one of the Thermians is like hanging from like a sparking wire in the background. And there's like explosions.
He said, just FYI.
Just FYI.
And the violence to the Thermians was fucking, because they're so like, and they were so like impervious to it. Were fucking hilarious. And that's part of the thing, is like, the show gave the Thermians enough hope to make it through what they're making it through. And so the reality is like, if that show inspires this in them, why would you take that away from them? And it doesn't matter what that is. And that's what story is. Yep. And there's a reason why the first space shuttle was called the Enterprise, right? Because it's inspiring your imagination and everything to go tomorrow. And we heard what I just said at a speech at a space conference, when they were talking about how science fiction's inspires your imagination and the minds to create the things of tomorrow.
And that is the power of mythology. That's the power of myth. There's a reason why every culture has had their mythic pantheon, their Zeuses and their Odins and all that stuff, because those stories about those characters inspire us to greatness, inspire us to achievement, right? And so for the Thermians, Galaxy Quest is their myth. Right? It's the myth that inspires them. And like you said, the end result of the movie is don't take it away from them. It's inspiring them to greatness. Let them have it. You know?
And that the story and the character transition with Alan Rickman when he's laying and the guy's dying.
Yeah.
And he realizes that he has a moment to give this guy a real gift by validating his story, validating the hope that has pulled them through and kept them together. And the look on that guy's face when he says, by the hammer of...
Yeah, Grathar's hammer, by the Sons of Warban.
By Grathar.
You will be
avenged.
Yeah.
And you see the peace on the guy's face. Like, oh, he's got I will be avenged. He's got me. And he gives that to him. And that's why it's such a powerful moment. It says, it says so many beautiful things in this movie while making you laugh the whole time. The aliens never got old for me. Like, there was never like, I laughed every time they came on screen. And even when they all ran to the command deck and they all like ran and they did their thing, I'm fucking dying. Or when the spaceship is ripped open and they're like all their oxygen is being sucked out of their thing, like the violence to them, everything was fucking hilarious.
Which, it is right up until the captain's being tortured. And then it's not funny anymore.
Yeah.
Right? And they land that moment so well. Right? Like up until this moment, we've been laughing every time something bad happens to these guys. And then you have this moment, you're like, oh, this is real. And this goes to your point about, you need to feel like the threat is real. When they're torturing that guy and you're like, oh shit, right. These guys want the Saris and his minions want to exterminate. They don't want to just conquer the Thermians. They want to exterminate this. This is genocide. Mm-hmm. And you have that moment of like, shit, right. That's true. They somehow managed to land both, which is why it's such lightning in a bottle. How do you have these characters be such funny, goofy, kind of almost edging on slapsticky characters and still land the moment of real sadness and threat when he's being tortured? It's brilliantly done.
So Tommy Weber, one thing that catch me up on this. So is it because they cast an actor who was younger and they really wanted him? They made him a kid in the thing, or was he always a kid on the original show?
It's a takeoff on Wesley Crusher. Remember in Next Generation, they had Wesley Crusher would be up on the bridge and he's like, 14-year-old kid. He's like doing the controls and stuff, which was always kind of silly.
I forgot about that. Okay, so now that makes sense.
So Tommy Weber in the old show was the Wesley Crusher character.
Okay, okay, now that makes sense.
And now he's a grown man that doesn't look anything like the kid that was flying the ship, but he's still, doing these events with the crew and stuff.
Right. Yeah. And then, it was fun. That was a fun premise to see, like, you walk on a spaceship like the Enterprise and everything is real.
Right.
That show that you loved and everything is real. And then him having to drive the ship out and it's like running up on the no fucking idea what he's doing.
Yeah. And they did such a good, so let's talk, we've talked a lot and we can talk more about the actors as well, because we still haven't talked about Alan Rickman, who's fantastic. We still haven't talked about Sigourney Weaver. But on the topic of walking onto the thing and it's real, talk set design, they took it seriously. They made the set designers made a thing that looked like a 60s TV show spaceship if it was real. And they did a fantastic job with it. And one of the things they did, which is really cool, is they actually it's a floating stage. So when the ship's getting knocked around, they could actually tilt the whole set so that the actors could like fall around together, which of course, you watch old Star Trek and everybody's pretending to fall, and you got Kirk in his chair going like this and people tumbling around behind him. And sometimes they're falling opposite directions because they didn't get the direction right. But yeah, they took that idea of this is a 60s TV show or 70s TV show, whatever. And now it's real and actually made it look like the real version of that.
Yeah.
So when you see the TV show version, it looks cheap.
Yeah.
It looks like it's made out of cardboard, right? And then you see the sets and they look exactly like that, except real and no longer made out of cardboard.
And they did something that was genius is they went and made a recreation of a 70s sci-fi set and they shot it and they gave them a half a day to do it. So they didn't have time like the other time they didn't have time and everything. So they shoot that. And then, they're doing that stuff, whatever. Now they come. And what I love is like Sigourney Weaver, like this is so random is when she goes to the Comic-Con, it's like Sigourney Weaver, and she goes in and she's like
Yeah, like she did karate.
Yeah, and it's like, oh, her character knows karate in the thing, and it's like she doesn't even put anything into it to do the thing to do the karate.
Well, that's a good segue to talk about Sigourney Weaver because her character in this, Gwen DeMarco, is fantastic, and Sigourney Weaver's a great actor and a great comedic actor as well. She's very funny when she wants to be funny, and what they use her character to do is talk about the sort of inherent sexism of those old TV shows that, like we all love Uhura, and Uhura was a groundbreaking character for TV, and Nichelle Nichols should get nothing but praise throughout eternity. But her job was to sit on the bridge and be sexy, right? With like the tights and, the skirt that barely covered her butt and all that stuff. And her only job was to repeat stuff other things had said. Like, they're saying this, it could be, like that whole thing. And so they do that with the Gwen DeMarco character where, she talks about how her TV Guide interview was three chapters or 3 paragraphs about her outfit fit her boobs, right? And that her job on the ship isn't a job. Like that, there's that fantastic, hilarious moment, her best moment, where she's like repeating what the computer said, and they're like, that's kind of she's like, I've got one job on this ship, and it's stupid, but I'm gonna do it.
Yeah, I know it's stupid, but I'm gonna do it.
I'm gonna do it, and kind of calling out the sort of misogyny and sexism of those old TV shows that was. The girl always got the worst job and dressed the sexiest, right? And I think they do a nice job of sort of calling it out, but then also giving her a lot of really heroic stuff to do, so she doesn't wind up just eye candy.
Well, it's also the irony because she's the first badass sci-fi iconic Ripley character of all time. And for her to come and comment and play this is ironic. And back under Harold Ramis, when they were doing this, he didn't want anybody with any sci-fi baggage. He didn't want any part of this. But Sigourney Weaver really wanted this part.
Yeah.
And she kind of fought for it and pushed it. And every joke lands. Like there isn't any weak
There's no
performances. There's no like everything that was supposed to hits and hits hard. And you're right. Like every now and then something comes together and the chemistry just, happens. And rarely, like I watch this with my kids and I'm laughing through the whole thing. And they laugh at a lot of the things, but there's a lot
Some of it is a little more grown up.
Yeah, a little bit more grown up or whatever. And I'm fucking dying. And they're laughing, but some of the stuff I'm laughing at, they're like, why is that funny? Like, where does that,
And it does a nice job of having some humor that a kid would appreciate, and also some more sophisticated humor. There's some jokes in here that you need to have some years to get. I understand that.
And there's a lot of insider baseball jokes.
Absolutely.
That are in there to get.
Well, I mean, if you've ever worked on a sci-fi show, you will recognize yourself in this movie. If you've ever been a fan, if you've ever gone to a fan convention or anything like that, you're going to recognize yourself in the movie. And even if you're just a person who sat home and watched every episode of Star Trek and never did anything else, you're going to recognize yourself in this movie, right? Because the movie lovingly talks to all of us. Everybody who's had any part of a show like this, it's lovingly including all of us in the joke, right? I think that's also part of the magic of it.
We would be remiss if we didn't talk about Stan Winston in this because he did the makeup in a ton of classic movies, but the movie that's one of Ty's and I's favorite of all time is The Thing, and he did that. He did
the Terminator.
He did the
Terminator. Original Terminator. The original Stan Winston.
Yeah. I mean, you could go through his IMDb and it's like, Jesus Christ,
Yeah. No, there is an argument to be made that Stan Winston is the greatest prosthetic and robot special effects artist of all time. You could definitely make an argument for that.
Yeah, I mean, who would challenge? I mean, I guess Rick Baker's
there are, like you said, Rick Baker's pretty great.
Yeah.
There are others who are at that
like
top
American
caliber.
Werewolf in London, just that puts Rick Baker like in another stratosphere. You go back and see it, especially like the time and when that came out, and never seeing like to do that in the daylight, in the intense light, and see a werewolf transformation. But we're not talking about that yet. But we will.
But to that point, though, you mentioned that you would have liked the aliens to be less cartoony. But what I'll say, though, is General Saris, the main bad guy, looks real. I mean, the costume is so well done. The prosthetics and all that are
he
so
looks
well
real.
done.
But think about the Wrath of Khan, right? Think about Khan, right? Now, Khan, he does have the Rod Stewart haircut and everything, but he is grounded, and he's a fantastic Star Trek villain. And he's not cartoonish he's not a 10 the whole time. And so somebody like a Wrath of Khan in there is a more formidable foe than Saris. Like, you see Saris and there's never a moment that he's not going to lose. He's silly.
He tortures the shit out of the Thermian leader.
But it doesn't feel, I don't know. I think even Wrath of Khan with that beautiful blonde locks, I think he is more interesting as a villain than Saris, because
you just have a weird hang up about lizard people.
Listen,
You've never respected lizard people.
I've never respected. I'm sorry. I just don't fucking. It all started with V, right? As soon as as soon as I saw her take the suit off, I'm like, "Fuck you! I want the brunette with the blue eyes."
When they saw what they had done to your beloved Mark Singer, you never forgave the lizard people for that.
Beastmaster.
But I'm talking about Stan Winston.
Mark Singer had a beautiful body, though. Gotta say, Beastmaster when he's all oiled up.
When he's oiled up and shredded, more shredded than a julienne salad.
And Mark Singer was the first. He was different in the 80s because it was like the lean, non-steroided kind of juiced up look. Because at those times you're looking at like. Do you remember the He-Man action figures? Do you remember they're all just fucking juiced out of their minds and their necks and their fucking things, and it was like. That's what people started looking like on screen in real life, And you see that, and you see Mark Singer, and you're like, "Oh, this is just a guy that's in shape."
This is a guy who works out.
Yeah, this is a guy that works out. And then at the time, you're like, "Fucking Conan would kill this. It would eat him for breakfast." But then now you kind of learn a little bit more, and you're like, "I don't know. Mark Singer might give Conan a run for his money."
Yeah. So just finishing up the Stan Winston bit.
Sorry, listeners. We can't pass up a male figure without commenting.
We do have our love of the beautiful male body that we often go back to. Yeah. No doubt. But the practical effects, the models, the prosthetics, all of that stuff is top notch because they got the top notch guy to do it. And on that note, talking about prosthetics and practical effects, this is our segue into maybe the greatest character in the history of cinema, Dr. Lazarus, played by the fantastic Alan Rickman, who is
pitch perfect.
Pitch perfect. He's the guy who had so let me tell you a real brief story. I won't take too long, but the person who used to be my assistant when I lived in Mexico, Pat. She knows everybody. She's been to like every convention. She knows every famous sci-fi writer. She knows all the famous actors and stuff. And she knew the guy who played Blackula. You remember Blackula?
Yeah.
And Scream, Blackula, Scream, and all those. Okay.
Yeah.
She knew that guy. That guy was a Shakespearean trained stage actor. He'd played Othello at major venues in London, and he was as good an actor as you can get. Like he had all of the training, he had all of the skills. And his biggest success in America, because he was British, his biggest success in America was playing a blaxploitation version of Dracula. And I always think of him because Pat said he was like a wonderful guy. He never got mad at fans for knowing him from Blackula. Like he always treated everybody really well. But he did have this sadness that there was a version of him that was supposed to be a star of the stage and a respected thespian, and instead is known as Blackula. And whenever I see Alan Rickman playing Dr. Lazarus, I see that. I see the guy who I played Lear, I played King Richard, I was an up and coming actor in the London stage, world, and then I play this one stupid sci-fi part. And I get typecast forever and my career is over. Right? And he plays the sadness and he's just exhausted by it all. And the worst part for him is he's the only one who has a prosthetic. So not only does he have to go to all these stupid conventions like everybody else does, but he can't just put on an outfit. He's got to put that stupid lizard head on.
Oh my God.
Right?
Oh fuck. Famously, Tim Allen based his character off Shatner. And, Shatner might have got a little taste of the ego, for a while there. And there might have been, she goes, oh, he took his shirt off again. And that's kind of like something they said, over and over.
I see you got your shirt off.
Yeah. And it's like, oh, maybe he got caught up in thinking, oh, I'm Captain Kirk. I am Captain Kirk. The love that people have for Captain Kirk is the love that they have for me. And that's when you start to lose touch with reality. That's when you start to go to cuckoo land.
Yeah. And especially as an actor, like maybe you do a show for 4 seasons or whatever, and you get a little notoriety, and then you go in and like you're reading for your next part, and they're like, okay, so in this part you'll be playing a robot dog, and you're like, what? And that's Dr. Lazarus is like, he played King Lear, he played Richard III. He goes in, they're like, oh, you're playing a guy with a lizard fin on his head. And it's like, okay, but you don't know which things are going to hit, right? You don't know. So you do a lot of different parts, and depending on which one hits, that might be what you get typecast as. So poor Dr. Lazarus typecast as the fin-headed monstrosity. But it sets up the best emotional payoff in the entire movie is set up by that character. Because as you started out talking about, he hates all the trappings of it. He hates going to conventions and saying the line, the by Grabthar's hammer and, shall be avenged. And then everybody applauds, and he hates the fucking line. And they show him in the green room at a time. He's like, I'm not saying the fucking line. I'm not saying it. Then he goes out there and they're like, say the line. And then he says it because you have to,
But when the guy that looks up to him first tries to say it, he goes, don't you fucking say that. Don't you do it. Don't you do it.
But everybody's trying to say it. Like every person who walks up to him wants to say the line to him, right? And you get his exhaustion with it. Like he's exhausted by these people. And then you get the moment with Quillig, right? So he first meets Quillig, and Quillig is like, I've based my entire life philosophy off of your teachings. I had the code of the Maktar, and you're like a father figure to me. And Rickman wants none of it. He wants none of it. He's just like, whatever, leave me alone, you weirdo, right? And then you get to that moment where they're fighting to save the Thermians, and
the guy wins him over before that, like just by being a good-hearted
just by being a good guy. And then the moment where he's been shot and he's dying in Alan Rickman's arms, and as you said, he gives him the gift of that moment of saying the line and meaning it, and you can see Quillig sees he means it. He's not acting. He's actually saying it like it's true, like he actually means it. And it is, if you don't get a little misty-eyed at that scene, you are not a human being.
Yeah.
Like, I don't know anyone who can make it through that scene without going, oh man, it's not dust this room. Pretty dusty room in here. You can't, right? Yeah. You're not a human if you don't get hit by that scene.
Yeah.
And to go from what he was in the opening scene in the green room, how he hates the fans, he hates what he's doing, he hates his life, he hates all the trappings of the success that he had on the show, every bit of it, to the guy tenderly holding somebody dying in his arms and saying the line from the show that he hates to say, maybe one of the best story arcs in all of cinema. Like, I have a hard time thinking of a story arc that hit me in the feels harder than that one did. And it's in a stupid comedy. It's a stupid sci-fi comedy. And look how it lands that moment.
So the meta narrative of this, which is so great with Alan Rickman, is if you look at this and you're like, what would happen if Alan Rickman didn't get Die Hard? What would happen if Alan Rickman was in Firefly?
Right.
And he didn't get Die Hard. And then that was the turn that he took, because somebody as gifted, as talented as him, and he's going to succeed in whatever he does. But if he succeeds too well in the thing that he's not into, what would happen to that? What if Robin Hood was the first thing that he did? The only thing that he did was a villain in that. And then people kind of saw him with that kind of comedic, over the top thing. So it's really interesting that somebody as gifted as Alec Rickman is playing somebody that's gifted, but got stuck in something and didn't get to fully express his talent and what his potential is.
Yeah. Never got to be more than that one part.
Yeah, so we're just getting warmed up here, listeners, and I'm sorry, but Joseph is gave us the kibosh. So let's go ahead and let's get to the top 5 there, Josie. Josie's on a vacation far away.
Alrighty, guys, we have the top 5 parody films. There's quite a few.
There's a lot. There's a lot.
It's gonna be a tough one, but I think I'm
gonna go with the ones that I think are the funniest, not the best. So this is not top 5 best. This is top 5 funniest. I laughed my ass off at Black Dynamite. I laughed my ass off watching Black. Have you seen Black Dynamite, Wes?
I have not seen it.
Oh my God. Yeah. Oh,
should we do it so I can watch it? Should we do it on the podcast?
We should do Black Dynamite.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right.
I laughed as a kid, I grew up watching blaxploitation because I grew up in a black and Hispanic neighborhood as a kid, and all my friends were black. So when I would go to their houses, like that was what people were watching. So we'd watch, Cleopatra Jones and the Pam Grier, Foxy Brown and Coffee and all, which, by the way, kids should not be watching because Pam Grier just took her top off every 2 seconds, which as a young man, I appreciated.
What movie?
Yeah.
What movie?
Oh, all of the Pam Grier movies. Foxy Brown.
Didn't know about that.
Coffee. Yeah, all that stuff. Anyway, so Black Dynamite made me laugh my ass off. And I don't know, are you a Robin Hood Men in Tights fan?
I mean, not like I
would
watch
be in your
it.
top 5?
That would not be in my top 5. It made me laugh, but it didn't make me laugh as hard as
Tropic Thunder is number 1.
Oh yeah.
Tropic Thunder is number 1. there is no other thing, and Spinal Tap is number 2.
Yeah. If I had to say like the hardest I ever laughed in a theater, I would have to say Tropic Thunder.
I agree. I laughed so hard in Tropic Thunder that there are sections of that movie I didn't know about until I watched the second time because I had laughed all the way through them and didn't see them.
I don't know. Let me see. Airplane. God, there's so many funny ones.
Yep.
Because I loved Airplane. I loved Blazing Saddles.
And you and I both love Shaun of the Dead.
I love Shaun of the Dead. And Shaun of the Dead is another movie like that we're talking about with Galaxy Quest where it works on so many levels. Levels. Deep emotional moments. There's deep scary moments in that. By the way, Ty, those are scary fucking people in that movie. And those zombies are scary. Like they are formidable zombies. They can operate in a movie all on their own.
It's a horror comedy. It's not sci-fi comedy.
And they're so scary. And I believe them. And they make the comedy pop. They make the emotional thing pop. They work so well in that. And it didn't fuck up the tone.
Yeah, because it's a horror movie. The tone is horror.
But I'm not saying that. Anyway, let's not relitigate that. What We Do in the Shadows is hilarious.
Yeah, What We Do in Shadows is really, really funny. Yeah, I was surprised by how funny that was the first time I watched it. And to this day, I'll occasionally walking around the house, I'll be saying, "We're werewolves, not swearwolves."
I just almost spit all over my microphone. We're werewolves, not swearwolves.
Are you a Talladega Nights fan?
I love Talladega Nights.
Shake and bake.
I love Talladega. I think we got 5 though, don't we?
Well, yeah, but you haven't seen Black Dynamite, so I'll put it as my honorable mention because you haven't seen it. But and but we're skipping over some classics because Blazing Saddles is laugh out loud funny. I mean, it is wrong. It is the least PC movie out after 48 hours.
We probably shouldn't touch it. Let's not even talk about it.
It is so funny. It is so funny. I thought Austin Powers was brilliant the first time I saw it.
I did too. Oh, Top Secret. Do you remember Top Secret?
I do remember Top Secret.
Now, it is not up to the par of some of these movies up here, but when I first saw it, it was like one of the earlier times that I've seen those type of movies. I saw it, I think, probably before I saw Airplane late. I saw Airplane kind of started this off, and I saw it late. Are you a Naked Gun fan?
I like Naked Gun. It's not my. It's not. I mean, it's not. It would not be my top 5. I will say I would much rather have Young Frankenstein than Naked Gun or Top Secret. I think Young Frankenstein is a absolutely genius film. You've seen Young Frankenstein, right?
No, I have not seen it.
Jesus Christ.
What
Dude, have you? So you were aware there's an invention called movies, and on this invention they show shows. Right?
Shame. I have not seen Young Frankenstein. I
think Young Frankenstein would crack you up. Yeah.
Because I've looked into it a couple of times, and the trailer did not look great to me.
Yeah. You should watch that movie. It will crack you up.
Now, what about I'm Gonna Get You, Sucker?
I like it, but it's like an inferior version of Black Dynamite.
Okay. Damn, I loved Austin Powers. I loved Blazing Saddles. Loved Doctor Strangelove.
Yeah.
The funniest moment in Naked Gun is when they're having the falling in love montage and they're running down the beach and they're holding hands and there's another couple running and they go over their head, but they clothesline the other couple into the water and they just keep running blissfully. That scene just, when I was a kid and watched that, it just killed me. Spaceballs, scary movie. This is a tough one.
It is a really tough one. I mean, there's so many movies on this list that
The Holy Grail, Monty Python, The Holy Grail.
Monty Python, The Holy Grail is one of my most watched movies. I watched that movie over and over again. I mean, it's.
I think you have to put Monty Python on this list.
I agree.
Because of its importance and how.
I mean, to this day, I will hit on my wife by telling her that I can handle the peril. Like, I can handle the peril.
And Monty.
That was too perilous.
The search from the Holy Grail, it was one of those movies. You know when you're not expecting to laugh or something comes and you're not expecting it. Like that's happening with Naked Gun. But it's what happened to me to the Holy Grail, because I was like, what is this shit? Like because it was on HBO as a kid, right. And it was the quality was a little bit like, what's going on? And then you hear you see the horses, and then you look and the people are doing the
with the coconuts,
the horse sound, and I'm like, what the fuck is this? And then I watch it and I'm like, this is the funniest shit I think I've ever seen in my life. And I had no idea who Monty Python was. I didn't know what this was. I just thought it was so funny.
Yeah. I mean, with the caveat that literally anything on this list could be in a top 10. They're all great movies. Some I like better than others, but all of these are worthy parody films.
Yeah,
I mean, and nobody included the really shitty ones like Scary Movie. That's not on this list, is it? Fucking hate that movie.
I think it might be.
Ugh. Get that shit out of here.
Well, let's see what the patron said.
Spaceballs. I can see. Oh, they got Tropic Thunder and Monty Python. Shaun of the Dead.
Yeah, see, they got 3 out of 5. That's about what we usually get. Is about 3 out of 5.
Didn't we get?
These are the two different ones. They had Airplane and Spaceballs.
And I could have easily been talked into Airplane.
Yeah. And I think Airplane and Spaceballs are both great movies. So
Shirley, you can't be serious. I am. Don't call me Shirley.
Let's get to the cockpit. What is it? It's the little room with the pilot and co-pilot's pit. That's it. But that's not important right now.
Hospital? What is it? It's a building with doctors and patients and stuff. But that's not what's important
right now. I will sometimes be mixing myself a margarita at the bar and with no one in the room, just be going, I picked a bad week to stop making margaritas. I do it for myself. Nobody's there to even see it.
Finish yours, Joseph.
Oh no, I was like, Billy, do you like watching gladiator movies?
That Airplane
like
was so
though,
wrong.
I didn't get that when I was younger, though. I did not get that.
They were so wrong. You watched those movies. Airplane. Can I be Frank? Thank you guys for hanging out. I had a good time.
Quick, let's get out of here before those things kills Joseph.
Say goodbye, Ty.
Goodbye, Ty.